and good day to all of you. I am Villamay Paha and I'm with my team right now, Giselle Fabroa, Angeline Generoso, City Novasario, and Livimay Baldero. Today, me and my team will be discussing about instructional material development for mother tongue-based multilingual education following the outcome-based education framework. One of the key concepts in organization and management is instruction, right? Of course, definitely, instruction is the purposeful direction of a learning process. Hence, one factor to make learning process effective is good instructional materials, since it supports learning content and it allows students to be engaged more in the teaching and learning process. Now, what do you mean by instructional materials? Instructional materials, or what we call IMs, are the content of information conveyed within a course. It serves as the alternative channels of communication which a teacher can use to convey more vividly instructional information to the learners. It is the essential tools in learning every subject in the curriculum, and it is the resources and tools used as vehicles to help communicate the information. Now, IMs are tangible substances, meaning they are real objects that provide the audio or the visual component necessary for learning, and many of them can be manipulated. They stimulate a learner's senses and may have the power to arouse emotions. They help the teachers make sense of abstractions and simplify complex messages. Now, the question is, why do we need to develop an effective instructional materials? What is the purpose of an effective instructional materials? We already know that instructional materials, or IMs, have been observed as a powerful strategy to bring about effective teaching and learning. The importance of quality instructional materials in teaching and learning can occur through their effective utilization during classroom teaching. Now, that means the relevance of the IMs, or the instructional materials, to be utilized in teaching a certain topic is very essential. If you want to learn how to play guitar, of course, use a guitar and not a piano. The same way in teaching a lesson. For instance, if you want your students to learn about computer, then use the computer in teaching. The more you make it relevant, the more you make it effective. By doing that, students would be willing to learn and there will be less problem in getting their attention. That's the greatness of having an effective instructional materials.
Let's now proceed to the types of instructional materials.
These are the types of instructional materials. Storybooks in big and small in share reading. Alphabet chart, alphabet primer, activity cards, and chart stories. What are big books? The use of big books is a technique that fosters natural literacy development. So, there are pedagogical reasons why big books are considered the best in promoting literacy. First one, it encourages children to imitate and join in with literate behavior. Second, it creates a non-threatening condition for learning. Shared reading. Shared reading is an interactive reading experience that occurs when students join in or share the reading of a book or other text while guided and supported by a teacher. In short, it is a whole group reading experience. You might use song or poem on a chart, a big book, a printed article, language experience stories, a basal story, or a trade book. But again, one of the most important keys for shared reading is that all learners have access to the shared text. What is modeled reading? Modeled reading is an instructional practice in which the teacher models verbally to the students a reading process or strategy. For example, reading text aloud to students while they listen and observe. What is independent reading? Independent reading is a children's reading of text such as books, magazines, and newspapers on their own with minimal tool assistance from adults. Independent reading consists of reading done in or out of school, including purely voluntary reading for enjoyment or assigned reading for homework. Alphabet chart. Alphabet chart is a teaching aid that is used in teaching language alphabets. Alphabet chart facilitates the process of presentation inside a class for beginners. It helps in teaching alphabets in words with pictures and drawings that are related to the learner's environment to help learners to start communication. Through the use of alphabet charts, a learner can think, point, match, pronounce, and speak happily. Alphabet primer. Alphabet primer focuses on teaching children the alphabet using major tenets of the Christian faith. Reading alphabet books or ABC primer is one way to foster the alphabet principle. Reading alphabet books to your child not only helps them see the shape of the letters, but also the letter sounds. Skill-building activity cards are fun, engaging, child-friendly, early literacy activities to try with 3 to 5-year-old children. They'll give you new ideas for bringing literacy activities into your classroom, home, and daily routine. The cards were created with both parents and educators in mind, and they are free and easy to print. What is a chart story? A story map or chart stories is a strategy that uses a graphic organizer to help students learn the elements of a book or story. By identifying story characters, plot, setting, problem, and solution, students read carefully to learn the details. Stack mapping or chart stories can be scaffolded for students of verifying reading skill by modeling and discussing each story elements as they are written. It can also be differentiated by providing some students with simple story maps and others with complex maps.
Now let's proceed to MTB-MLE. MTB-MLE means Mother Tongue-Based Multilanguage Education. So what's this? What's this Mother Tongue-Based Multilingual Education? It is an educational program for children who do not understand or speak the official school language when they begin school. Meaning, mother tongue is the first language a person was exposed since childhood and grown up speaking. I grew in a society where we use Bisaya as our language for communication. It is the first language that I learned and mastered, so Bisaya is my mother tongue. We usually use mother tongue in expressing our ideas for the reason that it's much easier and more comfortable to use. We can express our ideas easily without having any difficulties when using mother tongue. Now the question is, why is mother tongue important in teaching? Mother tongue is important in teaching because students learn best when the language that is used for instruction is their mother tongue. It leads to a much better understanding of the curriculum. Now, what is the purpose of MTB-MLE? The purpose of mother tongue-based multilingual education is to develop appropriate cognitive and reasoning skills, enabling children to operate equally in different languages, starting in the mother tongue, which is the first language of the child. Like I said earlier, it's more easier and comfortable for students to use, especially in expressing their ideas using the mother tongue. The more the students participate in the discussion, the higher the chance they learn the lessons.
What is OBE? OBE is an outcome-based education. OBE is also known as standard-based education. This is a theory that's centered on outcomes or goals, which means we are shifting our focus. We are no longer focused on trying to finish everything that we need to finish for the entire school year. Our focus is that our students should reach the goals or outcomes that we have set for them. In addition, OBE or outcome-based education is very important for the overall interface between the students and the faculty of an organization or institute. There are two most important aspects of outcome-based education. the objective and the outcome. Just like any other mechanism, OBE or outcome-based education works on providing the input and expecting the resultant output. Here, objective being the input and outcome being the output. To understand objective and outcome on a broader prospect, assume objective as faculty's input and outcome as students' output. There are types of outcome. It can be subdivided into different categories as follows: knowledge or aptitude, skill, etiquette, and attitude towards work. Knowledge or aptitude. It is the organizational or institutional, which includes faculties and staff members. Duties to inculcate appropriate knowledge to students. It is solely the interest and decision of the faculties on how the teaching is to be done. They are well versed with the power of experience, knowing what to do and how to do. Skills. After gaining appropriate knowledge, students should be capable enough to implement their learnings. They should be skilled in that particular field. Etiquette and attitude towards work. Students should have a positive attitude with which they could demonstrate how it could impact their lives for their betterment.
My task was all about to discuss the connections of the three framework. We have the instructional materials, mother tongue based multilingual education, and OBE, which means the outcome based education. So the first one, from traditional instruction MTB to modern instruction OBE. So it is so clear from their discussion that the meanings are well delivered, yes, in these three terms or frameworks. So now, as we all know, mother tongue based multilingual education was from traditional implementation of delivering an ideas or informations from specific discussions or subjects. Now, its connections from instructional material, specifically in this 21st century, yes, is that they also use this framework and the fact that the learners, especially in elementary level, would prefer to understand the different indigenous languages they use, so that the teachers will also use this language for the sake of understanding and adapting topics in any discussions. And that's the first. And the next one, the second one, which is the MTB or mother tongue based education, support outcome based education or framework. And the third one, mother tongue based, serve as the guidance of OBE or outcome based education framework. So these two connections where they have the same purpose of expressing an ideas or facts to adapt by the student or the learners in common. Also, the mother tongue language guide serve as the guidance from outcome-based education, because there are times that even the teacher uses a vernacular languages, expected that before overcoming that specific objectives or outcome, they expected that before overcoming that specific objectives or outcome, they should use some indigenous languages, or the languages that student usually use for them to clearly understand or to clearly delivered and understand by the student.
What is the conclusion of our topic today? We have a question here, says that how can we develop an effective instructional materials for mother tongue based multilingual education following outcome based education framework? Now, we already know that outcome based education is a theory that is centered on the outcome or goals. As what Miss Angeline said earlier, that we are no longer focused on trying to finish everything that we need to finish for the whole school year. Instead, our students should reach the goals that we have to set for them. Thus, we should no longer follow the traditional way of teaching, but we have to shift our focus to the goals And that's the first thing we need to do to students achieve. Secondly, let's take practice of using the mother tongue as our medium of instruction. Miss Lily already discussed earlier that using mother tongue as the language of instruction and communication helps students in expressing their ideas, for it is much easier and more comfortable to use. The more they use mother tongue, the more they participate, the more they enjoy learning the lessons. And lastly, we should make our instructional materials more relevant. We should use instructional materials that supports the learning content and can allow students to be more engaged in teaching and learning process. So that is our conclusion, and that is the last topic that we had. So thank you for listening, and goodbye.